but tomorrow she's mine. And off comes that dress. And I'll put it right back on her again Thursday. Friday, I'll take it right off again.
Really?
The Hollywood Golden Age produced some of the biggest stars the world has ever seen. However, here is a silent truth. Most of these famous actresses are cruel behind the scenes. These women had a reputation for holding grudges, betraying friends, crushing rivals, and playing dirty, all for fame. Join us as we unveil the 21 most cruel female actresses in Hollywood's Golden Age. Let's begin. Number 21. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford is one of Hollywood's most iconic actresses. She captivated audiences in classics like Grand Hotel in 1932, The Women in 1939, and Mildred Pierce in 1945, for which she won an Academy Award. Joan had the looks, the charm, and the star power, but behind her impeccable public persona lay a more controversial and complicated personality. Joan was a very manipulative person, and colleagues who worked with her said she was harsh and didn't mind stepping on anyone to stay on top. Because of this, so many of her co-stars and directors avoided her. One of the people she had a rivalry with was Bette Davis. They had a famous feud while shooting the 1962 film Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. On the set, Joan reportedly stuffed her costume with weights during a scene where Bette had to drag her, as she knew Davis suffered from back problems. She did this just to hurt her rival. But this was not all. She was also wicked off-screen. Her adopted daughter, Christina, wrote a bombshell memoir, Mommy Dearest. In the book, she spoke about instances where Joan was physically and emotionally abusive. The abuse included strict punishments, fits of rage, and forcing her kids to call her Mommy Dearest all the time. Even though Joan came out to deny the assertions, the damage had already been done. She was already known for being wicked and cruel. Number 20. Bette Davis. Bette Davis was a versatile, volatile American actress whose raw, unbridled intensity kept her at the top of her profession for 50 years. She was known for her willingness to play unsympathetic, sardonic characters, as well as her performances in a range of film genres, from contemporary crime melodramas to historical period films and occasional comedies. However, her greatest successes were in romantic dramas. However, the actress was equally known for her perfectionism and commanding ways behind the scenes. She earned a reputation as one of Hollywood's most deliberately difficult stars, particularly toward actresses she viewed as rivals or perceived as incompetent. She could be impossible on set, barking orders, dismissing directors, and belittling co-stars if she thought they didn't measure up. Her most infamous act of on-set cruelty was to Joan Crawford during the filming of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. She reportedly kicked Joan in the head during a scene and claimed it was an accident. Like Crawford, Bette had no time for weakness. She held the view that kindness was a weakness in a competitive environment like Hollywood. So she weaponized her harsh reputation to maintain her position at the top, and she didn't care who got hurt in the process. Number 19. Judy Garland. Actress and singer. Judy Garland was the star of many classic musical films, including The Wizard of Oz, and was known for her tremendous talent, but her personal life was no fairy tale. When she was 13 years old, MGM signed a movie contract with her, and from that young age, she was overworked and always under pressure by the studio. That pressure created a storm inside Judy, one that often exploded in pain and cruelty. Even with her sweet appearance, she was manipulative, controlling, and vindictive. People who were close to her said she had a way of twisting stories, playing the victim while tearing others down and blaming others for her mistakes. Her relationships followed patterns of extreme emotional manipulation. She was married 5 times, and her lovers accused her of systematic abuse, including public humiliation, deliberate triggering of their insecurities, and the use of threats of taking her life as a control mechanism. Judy's difficult behavior was linked to her traumatic experiences, the pressure she faced, and substance abuse issues. Some say she became cruel because she was never treated with kindness in Hollywood. This narrative, while partially true, overshadows what those who worked closely with her described as the most devastatingly cruel woman in the industry, and they believed that her cruelty went beyond her challenges. Number 18. Joan Fontaine. Joan Fontaine always looked so innocent on television, but don't let that fool you. Joan had a sharp tongue and a tendency towards conflict, particularly with her sister Olivia de Havilland. The rivalry between the actresses encompassed their childhood, careers, love lives, and even the Academy Awards. Joan did manage to marry one of her sister's old boyfriends, tying the knot with Brian Ahern in 1939. At the time, a woman getting married was seen as a way of completing her life, so marrying before her older sister was a coup. The sisters' rivalry also played out in front of the world at the Academy Awards ceremony in 1942. Olivia and Joan were both nominated for Best Actress, Olivia for Hold Back the Dawn and Joan for Suspicion. Olivia was expected to win, but Joan received the Oscar instead. She then seemed to ignore her sister's congratulations when she went to collect her statuette. In Joan's 1978 memoir, No Bed of Roses, she didn't hold back from sharing her resentments toward her sister and giving her flashbacks to their childhood animosity. Joan held on to the grudge and refused to reconcile with her sister till she eventually passed on. All this goes to show that Joan Fontaine had a mean personality. Number 17. Olivia de Havilland. As we've already mentioned, Olivia de Havilland is the sister of Joan Fontaine, and cruelty was in their bloodline. Olivia had a refined and classy appearance, but beneath that polished image was cold resolve and a vindictive streak that shocked even those closest to her. Just like her sister, she had the habit of quietly shutting people out and holding grudges that lasted a lifetime. It is reported that she held a great deal of resentment towards Joan for having to share parental attention. Throughout their childhood and adolescence, Olivia would tear up clothes she had outgrown to avoid passing them down to Joan. Olivia also broke Joan's collarbone after pulling her into a pool. Also, when Joan debuted in Hollywood, Olivia tried to dissuade her by telling her there was only room for one de Havilland in Hollywood. Because of that, Joan was forced to drop their surname and take her stepfather's surname, Fontaine, as her own. That was just a mean thing to do to one's sister. When their mother passed in 1975, Olivia purposefully attempted to keep Joan from attending her funeral service. Still, she ultimately relented when Joan threatened to take the story to the media. After their mother's death, it was reported that the two sisters did not speak for 40 years, with their feud being dubbed as one of the ugliest and long-running feuds in Hollywood. Even when Joan passed away in 2013, it was reported that Olivia didn't attend her funeral service. That cold action made Olivia one of the cruelest women in Hollywood. Number 16. Katharine Hepburn. Katharine Hepburn, one of the most celebrated actors of Hollywood's golden age, made a lasting mark on the world of cinema for her headstrong independence, spirited personality, outspokenness, and unforgettable roles. While her strong and independent personality was quite admirable, some accounts suggest that Katharine was cruel and harsh, particularly in her later days. She was quick to criticize others and could be dismissive, especially towards those whom she didn't admire or whom she felt were not as talented as she believed herself to be. Far Out magazine notes that Hepburn did not like Meryl Streep. The primary source of her grievance centered around the notion that Streep's acting technique lacked the raw quality she valued in acting. She also made a cruel comment about Streep's acting, saying it was click, 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 referring to the wheels turning inside Streep's head. Hepburn was pained and utterly dismayed by the praise Streep received, as she deemed it subpar. Apart from that, the New York Times mentions that Hepburn was harsh and dismissive to a Newsweek reporter and reduced her to tears by ridiculing her miniskirt and tights. Not fair, really. But Hepburn was then a firm believer in using an offense to neutralize the need for a defense. Number 15. Marlene Dietrich. Marlene Dietrich was a German-born actress and a dazzling star of Hollywood's golden age. She had a glamorous persona and exotic looks and was all about sultry performances. Marlene captivated audiences with her mysterious allure and fierce independence. Her career took off with her breakout role as Lola Lola in Josef von Sternberg's The Blue Angel in 1930. Offline, Marlene was as bold as the character she portrayed and was not afraid to challenge norms. While she was a private person, some reports suggest that she was not always easy to work with. Her openness about her sexuality and defiance of societal conventions made her a controversial figure in her time. There are also claims that the actress was cold and emotionally detached. Few people knew the cruel realities of being the child of an international superstar than Maria Riva, daughter of Marlene Dietrich. Maria wrote a biography of her mother in which she revealed that the legend would refer to her as the child and never showed her maternal love. Marlene Dietrich was a cruel woman who did nothing to protect her daughter from mistreatment by a nanny. When Maria confronted Marlene about it later, the diva sneered at her. "Well, you're over it now, aren't you? You're not dead. Deal with it." What a cruel thing to say to your daughter. Number 14. Gloria Swanson. As one of the biggest stars of the silent film era, Gloria Swanson was renowned for her glamorous style and commanding presence, both on and off the screen. But behind that glamorous image was a woman who was cruel and selfish when it came to protecting her interests. Swanson first achieved fame acting in dozens of silent films in the 1920s and starring in hits like Male and Female in 1919 and Beyond the Rocks in 1922. Yet her world began to shift with the advent of talking pictures as she struggled to adapt to the new era of sound. Because of her resistance to change, many directors and co-stars started seeing her as stubborn and difficult. Her role as Norma Desmond in the iconic 1950 film Sunset Boulevard made people start seeing her as a cruel or self-centered personality because that was what her character portrayed. Even though the character she played was not necessarily representative of her true self, however, it wasn't far from the truth. Number 13. Miriam Hopkins. Miriam Hopkins may not be as well remembered today as some of her contemporaries, but in Hollywood's golden age, she was infamous for stealing the spotlight. Literally, she had a ruthless reputation for sabotaging other actresses and also had an explosive jealousy toward them. And because of that, many top stars refused to work with her. Director William Wyler, who worked with Hopkins on These Three and The Children's Hour, described her as difficult to work with and disruptive on set. She also occasionally had clashes with her co-star. Her most famous feud was with Bette Davis, with whom she made 2 films. During the production of The Old Maid, Hopkins deliberately tried to sabotage Betty's scenes by moving around during Davis's close-ups, forcing retakes, and trying to disrupt her co-star's performance. Hopkins was also known for demanding extensive rewrites to give herself more lines and better scenes, often at the expense of her co-stars. Miriam's jealousy wasn't limited to Bette. Her jealousy was so intense that when she believed a colleague was receiving more attention, she'd storm off set or refuse to come out of her dressing room for hours. She once pretended to be sick just to delay a co-star's big scene. Even with her reputation for difficult behavior, studio executives continued to hire Hopkins, drawn to her undeniable talent and the results she delivered. But her reputation for cruelty eventually contributed to her career decline as younger, more cooperative actresses were given preference for top roles. Number 12. Lana Turner. Lana Turner, an iconic actress of Hollywood's golden age, was among MGM's top stars and one of the highest-paid American actresses in the 1940s. She launched her debut as a screen siren in Leroy's 1937 film They Won't Forget, and by the 1940s, she was captivating audiences in films like Johnny Eager and The Postman Always Rings Twice. However, off-screen, Lana had a scandal-filled life and a reputation for being self-centered and demanding. Lana's love life was just as intense. Her relationships were often messy. She got married to 7 men and was also romantically linked to high-profile figures like actor Tyrone Power. Her most infamous scandal came in 1958 when her gangster boyfriend, Johnny Stompanato, was fatally stabbed by her teenage daughter, Cheryl Crane. This happened during a violent argument, so Cheryl's action was ruled as justifiable homicide. But then the scandal followed Lana and completely dented her reputation, and this pushed her into alcoholism and substance addiction. She began displaying erratic behavior and was consistently rude to others. Number 11. Barbara Stanwyck. Barbara Stanwyck was an American motion picture and television actress who played a wide variety of roles in more than 80 films, but was best in dramatic parts as a strong-willed, independent woman of complex character. She was orphaned at the age of 4 when her mother passed away, and this pain became a drive for her. Growing up, Barbara didn't enjoy parental care because she was raised partly by her older sister and partly in foster homes. It was all these challenges that shaped her into a fiercely independent and resilient woman, and they were all traits that later defined her Hollywood career. Barbara started her journey in acting in New York City, where she worked as a chorus girl in nightclubs and theaters. But her first lead role, which was in the hit 1927 film Burlesque, established her as a Broadway star. Barbara was a versatile actress who was naturally talented, and this helped her maintain her leading role in the industry during the time that Hollywood transitioned from silent films to talkies. She was also celebrated for her professionalism and dedication, and her unforgettable performances in films like Stella Dallas in 1937 earned her an Academy Award nomination. However, her intense focus sometimes led people to think that she was harsh or cold. She was insistent on high standards, and this only sparked tensions with co-stars and directors. Number 10. Veronica Lake. Veronica Lake was a Hollywood superstar who was greatly loved by film audiences. Her iconic peekaboo hairstyle and sultry persona made her one of the most recognizable stars of the 1940s. But behind that Hollywood glam, she was a bitter woman, and that bad attitude eventually cost her everything. Veronica's cruelty often stemmed from her alcoholism and untreated mental health issues. But even accounting for these challenges, colleagues described a deliberate meanness that went beyond her demons. At the height of her fame, she was known for being rude, sarcastic, and downright mean to her co-stars. She mocked other actresses, and on the set of This Gun for Hire, she insulted nearly everyone, including the crew, calling them beneath her. One director called her the most uncooperative actress, while another said she destroyed every set she stepped on. She also had a habit of belittling people, especially other women. She saw every actress as a rival and didn't hesitate to show that she didn't like them with a look or by making snide comments. Even Alan Ladd, her frequent co-star, grew tired of her antics and refused to work with her again. Eventually, her bad attitude got her blacklisted. No one gave her roles, and so she spent her later years bitter and broke, blaming everyone but herself. Veronica Lake's attitude was a nightmare, and Hollywood, brutal as it is, doesn't forget cruelty. Number 9. Gene Tierney. Gene Tierney was a talented actress and acted in films like Laura, but those closest to her knew she had a cutting side. Gene was the most unpredictable and deliberately vicious woman in Hollywood. She was distant, emotionally unavailable, and carried herself with an air of superiority that rubbed many the wrong way. She was known for refusing interviews, ignoring co-stars, and keeping her distance from everyone on set. Some said she was mean to new crew members and once insisted that no one look her directly in the eyes unless necessary. When a young actress tried to compliment her, Gene reportedly stared at her and said, "You'll never make it, you're too eager." Her perfectionism was part of the problem. Gene demanded flawless lighting, flawless costumes, and flawless silence. She'd halt production for minor issues and make directors reshoot scenes endlessly until she looked just right. She didn't hesitate to put anyone who mistakenly offended her in their place quickly. Even in her personal life, Gene could be cold. She couldn't maintain friendships because it was difficult for others to get close to her. Gene was later diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and this went a long way to explain that most of her volatility and cruelty was a mental health struggle. Number 8. Joan Blondell. Joan Blondell was an American actress who came into her film career after winning a beauty pageant. She appeared in more than 100 movies and television productions and was most active in films during the 1930s and early 1940s. But don't let the charm fool you. Behind the scenes, Joan was seen as petty, controlling, and downright nasty when the cameras weren't rolling. Joan was infamous for playing nice to your face and then mocking you behind your back. She'd compliment co-stars only to sabotage them during rehearsals. One young actress said Joan once borrowed her costume, had it altered, and then returned it unwearable on the day of shooting. She also had a mean temper. She'd yell at assistants, refuse to rehearse if things weren't perfect, and throw tantrums if her screen time felt threatened. Directors often gave in just to keep her quiet. In social circles, Joan could be vicious. She spread rumors, gossiped relentlessly, and excluded any woman she viewed as a competitor. She would see anyone who was pretty, talented, or ambitious as a problem. Her bitterness grew with age, and by the end of her career, many in Hollywood had written her off as toxic. She kept the perfect persona for the screen, but backstage, Joan Blondell played a whole different kind of role by being mean. Number 7. Zsa Zsa Gabor. Zsa Zsa Gabor, the Hungarian-born actress, became a sought-after actress with European flair and style in the 1940s. She was considered to have a personality that exuded charm and grace, but her reputation was not always one of kindness. She was known for her outspoken nature, and at times, she was cruel and outrageous. She acted petty, mean, and savage to anyone whom she didn't like. She was a high-class socialist who treated her staff like servants, often barking orders or firing people on a whim. In 1989, she slapped a Beverly Hills police officer, Paul Kramer, when he stopped her for a traffic violation because he dared to talk back. That moment made her infamous, and she was sentenced to 3 days in jail and required to perform community service. She had no filter and no mercy. If she didn't like someone, she'd say so publicly. She once called a rival actress a donkey in pearls, and she wasn't joking. Zsa Zsa also had altercations with nearly every other glamorous woman in Hollywood. She thrived on attention but hated sharing it. Outside her acting career, Gabor was known for her extravagant Hollywood lifestyle, her glamorous personality, and her many marriages. In total, Gabor had 9 husbands, including hotel magnate Conrad Hilton and actor George Sanders. Zsa was undoubtedly a fabulous actress, but she was also cruel and completely outrageous, and everyone knew it. Number 6. Lucille Ball. Lucille Ball was a comedy star who starred in the sitcom I Love Lucy. Lucille was known for her energetic and charismatic presence, but she also had a reputation for being sassy. But even though her boldness made her a star, it sometimes led to clashes with colleagues. Some of her colleagues even described her as demanding and tough to work with, especially when things didn't go as planned. She was controlling and at times cold, a far cry from the lovable, wacky character she played on television. But despite this tough exterior, those who worked closely with Lucy saw a different side. She was fiercely loyal and generous to those she trusted, even if she wasn't always the easiest person to approach. Some sources say that she was demanding and possessive, particularly with her husband and co-star Desi Arnaz, and sometimes with other cast members. Lucille Ball's legacy remains untarnished in the eyes of her fans, but whispers of her tough side still linger in Hollywood. Number 5. Paulette Goddard. Paulette Goddard possessed charm and beauty and was a talented actress. Whether it was a role, a man, or the upper hand on set, she wasn't afraid to go all the way. Co-stars often found themselves outmaneuvered by her subtle mind games. Paulette wasn't loud or mean, she was sneaky. She was known for flirting with directors to get more screen time, then turning cold the moment the camera stopped rolling. She once faked an ankle injury just to delay a rival's key scene and then magically recovered the next day. When she auditioned for Gone with the Wind, she allegedly sabotaged other cast members by spreading rumors about them so she could stop them from getting chosen for the role. Even her relationship with Charlie Chaplin was marked by extreme manipulation. She knew how to press buttons and manipulate emotions to get what she wanted. Off-screen, she kept up the game. She would charm publicists, then turn around and trash-talk them when their work didn't favor her. Crew members said working with Paulette was like walking a tightrope. She was unpredictable, and you never knew if she'd smile or sabotage. She was someone who didn't care who she stepped on to get what she wanted. Number 4. Ava Gardner. Ava Gardner was one of the most stunning women in Hollywood, but her temper was just as appealing as her looks. She struggled with alcoholism and didn't tolerate anything she didn't like. Ava didn't care about manners or Hollywood politics. If she thought you were fake or weak, she'd let you have it either verbally or physically. On set, she was moody, unpredictable, and confrontational. Hence, co-stars learned to stay out of her way. She hated being told what to do, and when she was, her response usually involved a string of expletives. She also had a way with words. She'd mock other actresses for their looks, age, or acting skills, especially if they were seen as competition. Even in her relationships, Ava was brutal. Frank Sinatra loved her deeply, but she broke his heart repeatedly, often in public and frequently with other men. Ava Gardner didn't fake sweetness. If she liked you, great. If she didn't, you were going to feel it. She was fire and thunder wrapped in silk. Beautiful, yes, but dangerous to stand too close. Number 3. Loretta Young. Loretta Young was all about morals on the outside. She maintained a polished, church-going image, but behind that angelic smile lay a woman who ruled her world with icy control and cruel judgment. Loretta didn't yell or throw tantrums. She shamed you into obedience. She expected the cast and crew to match her standards, and if anyone strayed from that ideal, she ensured they were quietly reprimanded. She kept sin lists of people she considered immoral, and those names? They were whispered into the ears of producers, directors, and studio execs. Careers were ruined under Loretta's halo. She also hid one of Hollywood's biggest secrets, her daughter with Clark Gable, born out of wedlock. Instead of owning the truth, she spun a fake adoption story and sent the child away to cover it up. When the truth came out decades later, even her daughter said she felt like a shameful secret. Co-stars said her goodness felt forced and her kindness strategic. If you didn't fit into her vision of morality, she'd shut you out completely. Loretta Young portrayed saints on screen, but in real life she was known to be mean and judgmental. Number 2. Hedy Lamarr. Hedy Lamarr was a stunning and brilliant movie star, but with that genius came a sharp temper and zero tolerance for those she deemed beneath her. Hetty didn't hide her disdain for people she didn't like. She was blunt, arrogant, and dismissive of anyone she didn't respect. She'd insult crew members on set for asking stupid questions. Directors who challenged her would often find her refusing to follow directions or walking off the set. She once told a co-star, "You're lucky they hired me. No one would care about this film without me." Hetty was also highly competitive. She didn't trust other actresses and treated them like enemies. If you were prettier, younger, or getting more attention, she'd make your life miserable. She once blackmailed a rival with personal letters to get her removed from a role. Even off camera, Hetty made people feel small. She believed she was smarter than everyone around her, and she usually was. But rather than inspire people, she often insulted and alienated them. She gave the world beauty and brilliant inventions, but left behind a long trail of bruised egos. Hedy Lamarr was a rare kind of genius, one who was often misunderstood for being perceived as mean-spirited and for not keeping up. Number 1. Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor was a beautiful and talented Hollywood actress who rose to stardom in Hollywood's golden age. She was fully aware of her power and used it. She was bold, outspoken, and famously manipulative when it came to achieving her goals. She was also caught up in one of Hollywood's most famous love scandals when she had an affair with Eddie Fisher, the husband of her close friend, Debbie Reynolds. At that time, Debbie, who was pregnant with her second child for Fisher, was so blindsided by the betrayal of both her husband and her best friend. She filed for a divorce from Fisher and severed ties with both him and Taylor. Taylor and Fisher later married, but their union dissolved within a few years. This scandal shocked the world and forever changed her reputation, as the tabloids accused her of being a homewrecker. But did Taylor apologize? Nope, and she didn't stop there. She had intense affairs, walked away from friendships, and broke rules when it benefited her. She also had a taste for revenge, and heaven help you if you stood in her way. And that's the roundup of cruel actresses who ruled Hollywood's golden age. So next time you watch one of their glamorous scenes, remember that there is a trail of cruelty behind that perfect smile. Which actress shocked you the most? Or is there anyone we missed on our list? Feel free to drop their names in the comments. Hit that like button, share, and subscribe to our channel for more. Before you go, take a moment to review the videos displayed on your screen.